Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. This is the first Joebeau podcast. Pretty much last night I decided, hey, let's start a podcast. So right now it's just me. Um, you probably don't know me. I will introduce myself. Obviously, this is my first podcast. I kind of want to give you guys a good understanding about who I am, what I like to do, what this podcast might talk about, um, and everything. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day, whether you're going to work, whether you're laying in bed, whether you're at the dinner table. I don't know. But I hope you're having a good day, and I want to get started. I'm not sure how long this is going to be. Like I said, I'm just going right off the cuff with this. I have never done one of these before. Literally went to Best Buy last night with my girlfriend and was like, okay, let's buy this mic. And here I am. My class got canceled today. So I figured, let's try a podcast. Let's see what it's like. So pretty much, first things first, I want to say that it is National Siblings Day. I have many siblings. Well, not many. I guess like 4 or 5, something like that. So happy National Siblings Day to those siblings out there. National Siblings Day is not really a big day, especially for somebody with only a few siblings like myself. I mean, they know that I appreciate them, so I don't think there necessarily has to be a day to remind them. But anyway, let's get into a little bit about myself, so you guys know kind of who I am, what I do, what I like, especially because what I like is it's not necessarily gonna focus. I'm not. This podcast isn't gonna be just about what I like. What I like. It's gonna be a lot about what you guys like, what type of stuff you guys are interested in, what do you guys want to hear, what's relative, like what's in the new, like stuff like that. Everything that's relative to you guys. And that's especially what I wanted. I wanted to touch base a little bit about why I'm even starting a podcast. Right now, podcasts, I feel, are an underestimated way to kind of market or even market and get your word out, pretty much is what I'm trying to say, I guess. So I figured right now podcasting it's just the start of podcasting. Like this year especially is like the beginning of podcasting. I think and statistics are showing that podcasts are becoming more and more popular. So I said to myself, I also have a YouTube channel if you guys haven't checked that out. My YouTube name is just Joebeau. That's Joebeau. Type in Joebeau and you'll find my account. But I figured I also like to chat. I like to talk about stuff that's relative. I want people that are interested in the same things as me. I want to interact with people because personally, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'll get into that in a little bit about who I listen to and like what I like to listen to, I guess. But pretty much, I just decided there's got to be people out there that like the same things as me. I know that there is, and I know that there's people that necessarily don't have time to do a podcast, but they want to listen. They want to feel like they're part of something, and so I figured, why not? Let's just start it and see what happens. So I have a list of stuff that I'm going to talk about today. Like I said, I'm brand new to this whole podcasting thing, so don't take this the wrong way if it doesn't go as smoothly as some of your other podcasts that you ever listened to. But let's hop right into it. So let's talk about I really want this first podcast is really going to just talk about myself and like what the stuff that I like to talk about. So that way, whoever's listening, this is the first podcast, you can decide whether or not this could be a good fit for you. And I encourage you, even if the stuff that you like doesn't match up to what I like, I encourage you to still listen because there could be things that I talk about that, and if you listen to them over time, that you'll become interested in. I've had a lot of people that necessarily aren't interested in the same things as me, and then I bring them and do, like, I have a few friends that I've brought with me on some of the things that I do. They didn't like it before, or they did. I feel like they just didn't know how fun it was. Then I bring them, and then they fall in love with it. So it's kind of the same thing when you're talking about stuff. Like at first you might not like politics, but then the more and more you listen to it, you decide, okay, well, I kind of like politics. I kind of like talking about politics. I like getting into it. I think it's relative. So I encourage you, if you don't like the same stuff that I like, to still listen. I encourage you to do that. But let's get into it. So me, who am I? You guys are probably wondering. You're just listening to this voice right now. You're probably wondering, who the heck is this kid talking? How old is this kid talking? Where is this kid from? What the hell? I mean, it's just some random kid, weird kid talking. Well, let me introduce myself. I'm going to stick my hand out and give you guys a handshake and introduce myself right now. My name is Joebeau. Most of you listening probably know me because I probably posted this on Facebook or Instagram or something like that, and you guys are probably listening and figuring out, like, okay, I'm going to listen to this kid's podcast. So my name is Joebeau. Where am I from? I'm from Milton, Vermont. Yeah, Vermont. Way up north. A lot of kids, when I say I'm from Vermont, they don't even know where that's from. And a lot of kids, I just pretty much say I'm from Canada, because from where I'm from in Vermont, Milton, Vermont, it's not very far away from the border. So giving them a country to kind of give them perspective is a lot easier than telling them where Vermont is, because I don't want to pull my phone out on Google Earth and say, look, this is where I'm from. I'd just rather say Canada. And then they're like, oh, okay, up north where there's snow and there's trees that turn orange in the fall. So yeah, I'm from Vermont. Currently though, I am living in Florida, and I'll get to that in a few seconds, I guess. But first, a few things that I like to do. Let's see. I'm being from Vermont, there's not much to do in Vermont. And the kids listening to this know what I'm talking about, because the kids listening to this are most likely my friends and the people I grew up with. There's nothing to do in Vermont. I'll list you off the most popular things to do in Vermont. Skiing, snowboarding are huge. Hunting and fishing are also huge. And that's pretty much it. there's a few things to do in Vermont, but the two major ones are either mostly outdoor activities, because Vermont's rural. It's in the woods. It's like 600,000 people that live there. There's just not like much to do. So what I like to do, and I get this question all the time. You're from Vermont, you must ski, you must snowboard. I don't ski or snowboard. I've never got into it. During the winter time, I spent my time playing basketball, like all the time. And so that's what I like to do during the winter, or I go ice fishing, which is outdoorsy. So pretty much what I like to do, I love hunting, I love fishing, but don't paint that picture as me being a redneck, because I'm not. And if somebody calls me a redneck, I'm gonna fight you. I'm gonna hunt you down, and I'm gonna fight you. You listening? You call me a redneck, I'm just kidding. But for real, I'm not like a redneck or anything. For crying out loud, I live in a city right now, so if I was a redneck, I wouldn't be living in a city. So I like hunting, and I love fishing. I love listening to books, and a lot of kids. I used, like, in high school, and especially up to about a year ago, I really didn't. I didn't like reading. I hate reading. Like, I can't sit down and read a book. But what I can do is I can sit down and I sure the hell can listen to a book. That's a little bit easier, and it helps me comprehend what the hell is going on, because I don't really comprehend a lot when I'm reading, so I can sure the heck listen to books. And a few books that I would encourage people to read if you haven't. One of them is Shark Tales by Barbara Corcoran. She's from Shark Tank, one of the investors in Shark Tank. She's an older lady with short hair. She writes a book pretty much about how she turned $1,000 into a multi-billion-dollar company, real estate company in the middle of New York City. Great read. That was kind of like the first book that I really listened to the whole way through. So I kind of like it. And I would definitely encourage people to read it. And the next book that I would probably recommend I'm currently about 3/4 of the way through, is a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dave Carnegie. This is a very popular book to begin with. It encapsulates everything about life. It tells you, or it helps you understand how to pretty much act and how to treat people. It's a very interesting book, and if you're one of those people who don't necessarily like or can't comprehend like hard, I won't say it's a really easy book to read, but it's not the hardest book you're gonna find to read. I mean, it's more of like an adult book. But it's a great one to listen to because especially on I forgot what that app's called, Audible, I think it's called. They have like an older guy read it to you, and it's I don't think it's Dave Carnegie because I don't think he's alive. He could be, but I don't know. And it's just it kind of um helps you relate, and it the best part about it personally that I like the most is that throughout the whole book he gives examples. That's one thing. If you want to get a point across, you have to give an example of how what you're saying and how that works. And so Dave Carnegie throughout this book, it's an unbelievable read, and I love listening to it. It's a long book when you're listening. It's like 7 hours. Well, I guess it's not that long. Um, but he gives examples throughout the whole book of how each thing he says actually works, and he'll give examples of people and um, how what they did was what he's saying. Like he'll say, I'm trying to think of an example here. He talks about like how to control kind of like yourself and control and kind of how to treat people. I'm sorry that I can't really describe it. But the one example that really sticks in my mind is Abraham Lincoln. He brings Abraham Lincoln in a few times as being one of the most well-spoken individuals in the history. And he talks about how, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because this was one of the earlier chapters, but he talks about how Abraham Lincoln, when he was a young kid, 18, 19, would write these letters to people, and they wouldn't be nice, and he would write them to people anonymously, and what he would do is he wouldn't put his name on it, and he would write these mean letters, and and he would bring them to these roads, and he would drop them on the road, and then eventually somebody would, cart and buggy come down and find the letter, pick it up, see who it's to, and then bring it to that person, and then they would get this letter, and they weren't nice letters. Well, he wrote this letter one time, and I forgot who it was to, but he wrote this letter, and it was mean, and the guy who he wrote it to found out that it was from him. So back then, when you had to solve an issue, you fought somebody. You fought somebody with weapons, and you pretty much fought to the death. Well, he challenged Abraham Lincoln to fight to the death, and Dave Carnegie doesn't know. So these two go to this beach with their weapons of choice, and nobody knows why. The author, Dave Carnegie, doesn't know why, but somehow the match ended before it started. Then nobody knows why it did. I'm not sure why it did, but it ended. And that point in Abraham Lincoln's life was a turning point to how to treat people, pretty much. And so later in life, Abraham Lincoln was fighting. He was in part of the North, and they were fighting the South. And he made a wrong battle move or something, or he didn't capitalize on a move where he could have or something, and he got super frustrated that he didn't do it. So he wrote this letter to the chief, I think is General Lee. I don't know for sure if that's his name, but somebody in the chief of the things telling him that, basically expressing his frustration and all that about why he didn't do it, and then he was going to write to Lee why Lee didn't help him and stuff like that. And he wrote this long letter, and you're probably asking, how do you know he wrote this long letter? Well, because after Abraham Lincoln passed, they found it in the White House, in his desk in the White House, and he didn't actually end up sending the letter. And what Dave Carnegie talks about in the book is that he thinks that Abraham Lincoln looked out the window and kind of had a moment to himself where he calmed down and he said, this isn't the right thing to do. This isn't the right thing to be writing about. Like, I shouldn't be expressing my frustration to this person because this person really didn't have anything to necessarily do with it. It wasn't his fault. It was my fault. And so he just put it away in his desk and he didn't write a letter. And I think that speaks volumes to I spoke a lot to myself about how Abraham Lincoln, communicates with people, and that's kind of the type of person you want to kind of look up to when you're trying to like influence people and be respectful to people. So anyway, I like listening to books, as you can tell. And let's see more about myself. I have a few siblings. Okay, I got a twin brother. I think he's gonna be on the podcast tomorrow. Tomorrow should be an interesting one. I'm gonna. Last night when I said I bought microphones, I bought 2 because I want a few guests on my podcast. I want people to come in and chat with me. I'm going to want you guys to be interested too. So he's my twin, and we're going to talk about tomorrow what I think we're going to talk about. It's going to be probably a little bit longer than today's. We're going to talk about what it's like being a twin and what are some of our interests, and we're going to get in depth on a bunch of that stuff and what we like to do, and it's going to be an awesome podcast. You guys better tune in tomorrow. It's going to be good. But anyway, I have a twin brother and a few sisters, 2 of which live down here in Florida, which I'll explain why, and one of them lives in Vermont, where I'm from. Okay, I got those under the way. But let's get back to hunting and fishing. My 2 main interests. Actually, fishing, not so much. Hunting, yes. Here's why. Excuse me. So let's talk a little bit about hunting. Now, people who don't like hunting, don't end the podcast right now, because I swear I'm going to find you and I'm going to encourage you to listen. If you don't like hunting, don't end the podcast. I want to explain to you, because I feel like hunting is very unappreciative to people who have never even tried it. And it seems kind of like a dumb idea to people who haven't tried it. And I can admit myself, if it wasn't for my dad or my grandparents, my grandfathers to get me into hunting, I would have never. I guarantee you, I would have never even cared about even ever getting into it. So hunting. Well, I started hunting when I was younger, and me and my brother are definitely going to talk more about hunting probably together. But it's one of those things where it's like, in the moment, so there's a few types of happinesses, or I don't even think that's a word. There's a few types of memories that you have. You have the memories where it's fun in the moment, and then you have the memories where it's fun after the moment. Okay? Here's what I mean by that. And I think I heard that once on Joe Rogan's podcast. So if in the event that you guys heard that on Joe Rogan's podcast, I believe that's what. And I the reason why, and that was a long time ago when I listened to that podcast, but that stuck into my mind because it's absolutely true. It's like saying, okay, in the moment, you have these memories where in the moment it's fun, like roller coaster rides, or maybe some types of like I don't know. I guess roller coaster rides are a great example, but like things that get your adrenaline high and it's fun in the moment. But then you have these bigger memories, and a lot of you can relate to this, where you have these memories that are not necessarily fun in the moment, or they're not as fun, but after the moment, they're so much fun. And hunting for me has been a mixture of both. There have been days of hunting where it's like, oh my God, I love it so much. Even if I don't, shoot a deer or whatever, it's still so much fun. But then you have these days where it's like, I've had a few hunts where it's miserable and it's pouring rain and you're soaked. And at the end of the day, and you're hunting hard. And at the end of the day, you still don't shoot an animal. And not that it's all about shooting the animal, but at the end of the day, that's what you're going for, obviously, when you're hunting. But those memories in the moment, it sucks. But when you look back on it, you're like, damn, I learned a lot on that day, and I still love doing that. So it's like hunting's one of those types of things, and I encourage people, if you've never hunted, please get out in the woods. Go with you. Most people know people who hunt. Just go out in the woods and try it. If you want, you contact me. I'll bring you out hunting. I don't care. But only if you've never gone. I'm not going to bring people who've gone just to show them my spots. But if you've never gone hunting and you really want to get into it and you live somewhere in the Vermont area, give me a call. Cause I'll bring you out. I don't care. I really want to show people how fun it is. And everything. But anyway, so I like hunting. I like fishing. I fish a lot now that I live in Florida. And let me get into why I live in Florida. Currently. Like I said before, I'm not a redneck. So, and here's how I'm not a redneck. So I grew up in Vermont, as I told you guys. Grew up in Vermont, and when I was 18, I graduated high school. And went to this college in Vermont called Castleton University. Pretty much everybody that's ever learned, actually probably the most people who listen to the podcast are going to obviously know this because they're most likely my friends, as I said before. Know that I went to Castleton University for my first year of college, and at the end, so let's back up. When I graduated college, about a month after that, my mother moved down to Florida with my two of my sisters. So that the rest of that summer and the whole year that I was at Castleton, I was in Vermont by myself. My brother went to college in New York City, and so I didn't have my mom up there. Not that I'm a mama's boy or whatever, but I didn't have anything up there. And so I spent the whole year at Castleton, which was a blast. Castleton was extremely fun, even though it was in a tiny town with literally nothing to do but hang out with people and party. Whoa, it's thundering bad outside. But anyway, I went to Castleton, and not a lot of people think that it was my mom did influence me to move down. I'm not going to say that she didn't, but she wasn't the only reason why I moved down. And I think that's a big, jeez, that's loud. I think that's a big, misunderstanding with a lot of things, is that they think that, my mom was the only one that, only reason why I came down. So that's not true at all. So college so far has been a great experience. It's been a few of a better years in my life, or at least months. But it's definitely changed me. And what I mean by that is it's matured me. It's made me more mature. Matured me, that doesn't make sense. It's grew me as a person. It's made me become more mature. And it all started back at Castleton. I think it really started. So the first semester of Castleton, for the people who don't know, because there are people out there that do know. For the people who don't know, first semester of Castleton, I went to Castleton. Okay. Second semester, my brother transferred up to Castleton. He didn't like his school in New York City. Transferred up to Castleton to pretty much be with me and be a little bit closer to family and stuff that he likes to do. Okay. Like hunting and fishing. Obviously, you can't do that in New York City. Excuse me. So he moved up. So the first semester I was by myself with a few of my really good friends, and I made a lot of friends that first semester. And then Connor came up, my brother, and he was also with me in the second semester. So my transformation was mostly in the second semester, and I started thinking it's like one of those things where a reality check kind of punches you in the head, and it's like, what are you doing? So I spent a lot of that year hanging out, partying, most of the college stuff. And then reality popped in my head. I'm like, fuck, I'm going to be, excuse me for my language, but I'm going to be 20. I'm 20 now, but at the time I was 19. I'm going to be 20. I got to start thinking about what I want to do for a living. Is living in Vermont a great choice? And for me, I'm a business guy. I want to be a successful entrepreneur and things like that. In Vermont, for me, after doing I learned a lot. I met a lot of successful business people in Vermont, but as I was at college and other things, and it wasn't, for me, it wasn't the best spot to make a living, so to speak. It wasn't the best spot to start my career. So I said, well, shit, I got a couple options. I can either pack up and move to a completely different state with nobody, not even, well, my brother, maybe I could have convinced him, or I can move down to Florida to kind of get that. Because before, when I was living in Vermont, I never traveled outside of the northeastern half, or I guess the northeastern part of our country. I've never been more south. I've never been to New York City. I've been to Boston once in 8th grade. Y'all that are listening know that that was a lit time. I went to Boston in 8th grade and everything. And that's it. Like, I've never been outside of Vermont. Realistically, I've never been outside of Vermont. Went to a few states playing basketball, Rhode Island, like a few states, but just nothing big. I've never been to Florida. I've never traveled to Florida. A lot of kids in Vermont go to Florida during, say, sometimes in the winter for like vacations. I never did that. So for me, I was like, shit. Well, I'm gonna either stay in Vermont and try to survive here, or I'm gonna move to Florida and kind of start experiencing life, because that's really what it's about. And my mom told me like, hey, I can look for schools for you if you're really gonna consider moving down here with your brother. And I was like, you know what, screw it, because when I make decisions in life, and I think this is a key point for people who are trying to, think about a transition or trying to make a big decision, and this is a good learning point. When I make decisions in life, I try to make a decision based on a few things. I try to look at, who is this going to impact? And at the time, that wasn't going to impact anybody but myself. I mean, my friends they'll support me either way, so they don't really care. And will I regret it? And that's the biggest deciding factor when I'm going into these things, making big decisions, because I have another big decision that I'm going to tell you guys probably in a little bit. Hold on, let me write that down so I don't forget to tell you guys that big decision. So stay tuned, because you're going to want to listen to that big decision. And a few of you probably know. But anyways, where was I at? Oh yeah, this big decision. At the time, I was saying, I would probably regret not making that transition, even though it's really not that big of a deal to a lot of people, especially people who have traveled before. But at the time, it was a huge deal for me. Like I said, I've never traveled. I've never been on an airplane. I don't know what Florida is like. I don't know the culture of Florida. And so at the time, it was kind of a big deal. And I said, will I regret not doing this later in life, like in 10 years? And I'm like, fudge, yeah, I'm going to regret this. Like, what the heck? I'm going to absolutely regret this. So at the time, I was like, sure, let's just go. And so I talked to my brother, and my mom obviously was in the mix. Us three kind of decided, okay, let's look at colleges. And so I went down for, I think, a week. I think I went down twice before I actually moved down here. I visited for a week 2 times on 2 separate occasions. One of the weeks I scouted out schools or whatever, toured schools, and I found the school called Lynn University. And I liked it. It's a private school, but the biggest draw here at Lynn is that it's paperless. And what I mean by that is they give you an iPad and you don't have any papers in your class. And I mean, when I talk about you don't have any papers, unless you are writing notes, the classes I've been in, unless you are writing notes on paper, pad and pencil, you literally don't get very much paper. So I was like, shit, well, and that's good. And they have beautiful buildings here. It's a small school. It's like the same size as Castleton. It's a little bit bigger than Castleton. But at the time, I liked it, and I still like it. So me and my brother moved down here about a year ago, and we've made that decision. And why this reflects back to me being a dang redneck, because a lot of rednecks, because I know rednecks, and you know rednecks if you're listening, a lot of rednecks are the same type of people who are going to stay in their hometown for the rest of their lives. Let's be honest. A lot of rednecks, not all, but a lot, the ones that I know especially, will stay in their hometown. They're the people who stay in their hometown the longest usually. And I'm not that, and I don't want to be a redneck, but I do enjoy the outdoors. So I like to be that happy medium. I want to be the kid that's not a city slicker, but I also want to be the kid that's not a redneck. I want to be right in the middle. I want to be able to experience, memories with people who are city slickers, and I want to be able to experience memories for people who aren't city slickers, people who like to live out in the woods. So that's what I really want to. And the reason why that matters is because I really want to bring my podcast into that. I know a lot of podcasts focus on like just hunting, or a lot of podcasts focus on just politics. Well, I want to be that happy medium where you can come in, both sides of the world, the city slickers and the rednecks can kind of come in. We can all listen, interact, and have a great time. And so I figured if I can be that happy medium, I kind of live as that happy medium, then I think it would be something, fun to do. So that's a big deciding factor on why I decided to even do a podcast at the first time. And if you made it this long in the podcast, let me just tell you, if you made it this long in the podcast, you are a true fan, and you might as well click subscribe, because if you like listening to me that much, you might as well just click subscribe. Just go ahead, click it. Click that little red button on YouTube, or you could be listening to this on SoundCloud. Follow me on SoundCloud. I think my username is Joebeau. I think it's just Joebeau, or maybe Joebeau 33 or Joebeau 44. Or maybe you're listening to this somewhere else. I don't know where I'm gonna post this. I know for sure it's gonna be on YouTube, because I know how to post on YouTube. I don't know how to post on iTunes yet, but I'm gonna figure that out for you guys. And so that's pretty much who I am. I have a few siblings. I live in Florida. I like hunting and I like fishing. That's not saying that I don't like anything else, because here's a few other things that I like that aren't redneck. I love filmmaking. I love technology. I love that half of the world. I love business. And I think, and I do, and I really, at least in the last couple of years, I've really gotten more into politics, and I like politics. So those are a few things, and those particularly are also very important to me. And I really enjoy learning a lot about those particular things in general, and a few goals that I have personally, so you guys just get to know. I just saw lightning and almost hit the dang dorm room. Yeah, I'm doing this in my dorm room, by the way. But a few goals that I want to share with you guys that I have, because if any of you have similar goals, hit me up. Let's be friends, because I want to know. I like to listen to other people's opinions, and I want to listen to what they want to do, because I think that the more people that you have that like the same as you, or like the more people that you can connect with, the better. And so if you have similar goals as mine, then let's chat. So my main goal, the big decision that I was talking about earlier, in T-minus, I think it's 2 months now, potentially 2 months, I will be leaving Lynn University. I'm a sophomore currently. I'll be leaving Lynn University with my girlfriend to take probably the biggest step in my life, which is going to be moving to New York City. Just us two, nobody else. My mama ain't going to give me money. Her mama ain't going to give us money. It's just ourselves. We got to defend, pretty much just fend for ourselves, and that'll be a learning curve for the both of us. And the reason why I'm doing this is because of opportunity. I think that you can't beat the opportunities that you're going to find in New York City. You're talking 14 million people. You are never going to find a city that has more opportunities in any field, whether you're modeling like my girlfriend, or whether you're marketing, or whether you're trying to start a business, or whether you're trying to be an artist, or whether you're trying to do filmmaking, or whether you're trying to be a cook. Anything, you're not going to find a place better than New York City in general to opportunities. So I think that at this time in my life, Will I regret not moving to New York City if I stayed at Lynn? I think I would. So that's why we're deciding to do this. That's why we're deciding to make this transition in our lives. So yeah, that's my big decision. I'm gonna move to New York City in a few months. We're saving money. We're living so minimalistically you don't even know. We're buying canned soup. I've never ate canned soup in my life, and we're buying $1 canned soup because, yes, we can eat at college, but at midnight when cafes are closed and we don't want to move or go anywhere, we need food. And our I guess our sleeping habits, we stay up late and we sleep kind of longer in the morning unless we have to work or whatever. So anyway, we bought canned soup and we have canned soup. We have a bunch of cheap food to make us last, so we can save money. And we could save money. And so yeah, so that's my big move. That's gonna be wicked fun. And if anybody is in that wants to start a business, that's in the business industry, that likes the potential of starting business, just hit me up. Either go on this YouTube channel, comment below like what you like, or find my email somewhere, or I can just say my email, I guess. It's joe.beaupre, so JOE period BEAUPRE 98 at gmail.com. Hit me up. Let me know what you want to do. If it's something interesting and you're in the Florida area, you can come over and we can chat about it on a podcast and see what it's like. So yeah, if you have similar goals, I hope success finds you, or I hope you find success, whichever way you want to take that. I think it'll be great if you do find success. I think you should share your story. Email me your story. Also, if you have any interesting stories at all, say it's in the hunting, anything, like if you have a really awesome deer hunting story, email me, because what I'll do is, if you're not in the Florida, even if you're not in the Florida area, this is important. If you're not in the Florida area and you have an awesome story to tell, please email me at my email. I just said it before. It's joe.beaupre98 at gmail.com. Please email me a little bit about your story, and what I'll do is I'll call you. We'll do a voice recording on a cell phone, and so I'll call you and we'll chat over the phone, similar to like say radio stations do. We'll do that. I'll chat over the phone with you. You'll tell your story, and we'll have a good conversation. It'll be fun. And I'll pick your brain about your experience that you had or whatever. And I really encourage people to please email me if you ever wanna. If you have some outrageous story, or if you are, even some of my friends, if you guys are listening. Also, if you made it this far, you're awesome. You're an awesome fan. Not even a fan. You're just an awesome person. If you made it this far in the podcast, it's awesome. But anyways, any of my friends or even people who I don't even know, please just email me if you have an awesome story. I would love to hear what you guys have to say, hear about your awesome experience, pick your brain a little bit about it, figure out why it happened, how it happened, when it happened, where it happened, everything. So yeah, please email me about that. And lastly, I guess I'll just talk about a little bit of the podcasts that I listen to. So that way, maybe if you listen to these same podcasts, we're a fit. And if you don't listen to the same podcast, there's only a couple that I listen to. If you don't listen to these podcasts, I encourage you to listen to these ones. But, there's people knocking doors and everything. Hold on one sec. Okay, I was just writing this down so I don't forget. So anyway, a few podcasts I listen to and encourage people to listen to. The first one is going to be Joe Rogan. I guarantee if you are in the podcasting world, you know who Joe Rogan is. I know a lot of my friends. Well, actually, not even a lot of my friends, but just a few of my friends listen to him. My brother especially listens to him. Whoa, that was a big thunder hit. Anyway, Joe Rogan, he's an awesome guy. I highly doubt he's gonna ever listen to this podcast. But if he does, ever, please tag him too. Tag him if this goes anywhere. Or if you know Joe Rogan, just do something. I don't know. Make it so he listens to these last few minutes. If I encourage you, Joe, to invite me on your podcast. I'll even pay for I'll pay for everything. My hotel, my everything. my plane ticket. That'd be cool. I want to meet Joe Rogan. That's why I encourage him to invite me on his podcast. But in the event that very likely doesn't happen, a few people that I like listening to when it comes to the outdoor world. The first is the Big Buck Registry. If you like hunting, if you like especially if you like hunting, listen to these guys. They're a relatively small podcast currently. Like on YouTube, they only have like 1,800 followers, but I think on iTunes they're a lot bigger. But these guys, they give useful information. They talk a lot about they bring guests on, first of all, which is what I love. They bring guests on that are very well known and respected hunters. A few examples: Joebeau. He's a very big and respected hunter in New York. He hunts the Adirondacks. Or Lane Benoit, one of the Benoit brothers. Very, very famous hunters in the hunting world. Famous overall, no. But in the hunting world, those are respected hunters. And they bring them on and they pick their brain about, the types of ways that they hunt and how they hunt. And I think it's an awesome podcast for people who like hunting. And in the same field as for hunting, currently the Hunting Public podcast. These guys are younger gentlemen. They're kind of similar to the Big Buck Registry, except they do live podcasts on Facebook and YouTube. And what they do is the one thing I like these guys in terms of hunting. The reason why I like these guys in terms of hunting is because they'll bring up a map and they'll explain step by step how they'll bring in a video that they shot this nice buck on. Or nice deer, and they'll explain step by step on how they decided to get to that place or how they decided to hunt this certain type of deer, and then they explain, and it's very good informational podcast if you like hunting. But overall, Joe Rogan's probably the most diverse. He talks about everything. In the event that you haven't heard Joe Rogan, which is very unlikely, listen to a couple of his podcasts. He's a great guy. But anyway, enough boasting on Joe Rogan as if he's not already famous. To end, I just want to give a few people, a few potential guests that I'm going to bring on to start, because obviously I'm not like big yet. So I'm gonna bring on a few people. My brother is hopefully going to be tomorrow, if we can figure out a time to meet, because we both have class. I don't think he has to work though. We both have class. So I'm gonna bring him in, and hopefully potentially my dad, because me and my brother and my dad have very interesting conversations, and I'm talking like they're funny, and we will share stories about like all the crazy shit that we've done. Us three anyway. My grandpa Joe, who for a lot of you, 99.9% of you don't know who some of my friends know who my who my grandfather is, but they don't know. What they don't know is that I talk to him at least every day. I call him. First of all, he's 62 years old. He lives by himself, so he doesn't really have many people to talk to. I call him once a day and usually chat with him, and I'm not lying, for an hour to 2 hours at a time. We just chat and we just chat and we just chat. So I figured, well, if I could do it with my grandfather I'll just record him on the phone, or I'll record our phone call, and we'll be able to bring him in on the podcast. And then lastly is my girlfriend Vanessa. I don't think she made it this far in the podcast even, but if she did, I'm going to bring her on. She currently is with me in my dorm. She kind of lives with me in my dorm. She's over here all the time. So she's going to join me in my podcast. hopefully, and we're gonna get this ball rolling. I hope everybody that has listened has made it this far. I guarantee there's probably a few people who haven't, and there's probably maybe, if I'm lucky, a few that have made it this far. I really appreciate if you guys have listened to the whole podcast. Give me tips if I say a word too often. Let me know. Comment below if you think it's boring. Comment below if you like it. Please like the video or whatever it's on. Retweet it if it's on, not retweet, repost it if it's on SoundCloud. And I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. I hope you guys find this podcast again when I hopefully post later this week. Ideally, I'd like to do this podcast like once a day, but that'll depend on my work schedule and my guests, if I have any guests on their work schedule and everything. But I guess we're gonna just have to wait and figure that out. But tomorrow, I'm hoping that our schedules meet and we can sit down and have a chat for an hour. That would be cool. So, like I said, thank you guys so much for listening. I'll definitely get into more in detail about certain specific topics later in my podcast. But today, I just wanted it to be more of a informational podcast to tell you kind of who I am, what I do, what I like, and kind of set the stage for this podcast. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is the Joebeau podcast, and I will see you guys next time.